Whoosh.
For the first time in history, couples with damaged genes have hope. Genetic diagnosis at the embryo stage is now possible. Hope walks hand in hand with the specter of designer babies. Breakthrough work, combining in vitro fertilization with genetic selection, could soon take things a step further by creating a healthy baby whose bone marrow will save the life of a dying sister. What could be wrong with that?
The problem is that the technology is way in advance of legal understanding. The technology and the science changes almost daily. It's as if the law were running at full speed to catch up.
It all began with Louise Brown, the world's first test tube baby, born in 1978. Human life could be created outside the womb, and thousands of previously infertile couples were able to have children. But there was another side to that coin. If life could be created in a test tube, how long would it take before scientists could read the DNA of human embryos and select specific traits in search of the perfect baby? Anne and Al Friedman have one child, Jack. Jack is dying of an inherited disease. The Friedmans want another child, but worry it also will inherit damaged genes.
We're not just having a child for Al and I, but we're having a sibling for Jack, and that feels really good. I mean, he on TV, he smiles every time he sees a baby, and, I think that could be really, really nice.
Like the Friedmans, Jack and Lisa Nash want a healthy baby, but they want something more. A baby with matching bone marrow, selected to save their dying daughter's life. It's never been tried before.
We need to do it to save Molly, and I think we need to do it to make sure that we have healthy babies so another baby isn't brought into the world to have to go through what Molly has gone through. And she's no more worse for the wear, but she is. 80-year-old people haven't gone through in their life what Molly's gone through in 2 years. And she's a strong cookie, and that's good, and she's made us all stronger. Right?
This man's genetic secret is known only to his family. Huntington's chorea will develop and claim him in middle age. He and his wife want to spend the time they have left raising a family. They want children whose future is guaranteed to be free of disease.
I always wanted to be pregnant and have a child. But the more I learned about the disease, the more I knew that I didn't want them to have to go through that. We prayed about it a lot before we ever did it, but getting the news that they were Huntington free, that was very exciting.
All these families have genetic mutations. Revolutionary science can now access the human genome to detect and stop the damaged genes from passing on to their children.
Using in vitro fertilization-related technology, they can now see whether the embryo and fetus will carry this genetic defect or not. So you could take the abnormal embryos out and only transfer back the normal embryos.
Genetic diagnosis works this way. An acid probe cuts through the embryo wall and a single cell is removed. The embryo is usually 8 cells at this stage. Inside the nucleus, there are 26 chromosomes. Inside the chromosomes are 80,000 genes made up of 3 billion parts. This is the human genome. When geneticists learn to read it in full, they will know the secrets of life. Genetic selection began at the chromosome level, where hereditary diseases like muscular dystrophy and hemophilia show up. Genetic selection at this level is no help to the Friedmans. Their genetic problem lies inside the chromosomes, amongst the 80,000 genes. This is how the genetic dice roll.
If we think of the quarter, this quarter here, as a copy of the good normal gene, the part of the gene that's missing is the penny. So this is Mr. Friedman, and Mrs. Friedman is the same. Neither of them had any idea they carried this gene. And in fact, this penny, one with the missing part, has been in their family for generations. They're perfectly healthy because the good gene that they received from one of their parents is covering up the abnormal gene. And the penny just passes down from generation to generation, and no one knows about it until you meet somebody by chance who also carries the same penny. And now, you still don't know until it comes time to have a baby. And then, our egg can only give the penny or the quarter because our spouse has to give the other half. So let's say Al gives the quarter and Anne gives the penny. Then their child will carry the gene just like them, but it will cover it up and they won't know. But if by chance the egg and the sperm both have the penny, then there is no quarter to cover it up. And so that's what's happened with Jack.
Got it. Who's he? Who's he? Push, push. If he gets it just right, at the right angle, he can press it enough to trigger the song to go. But it's not easy for him. We'll need some practice. And the physical therapist was doing it in a way that got him more success.
The Friedmans are both 36 and live near Philadelphia.
What do you think of that, huh?
At birth, their son Jack seemed fine, but by 3 months his development appeared slow. Jack was taken to a hospital for tests.
I knew at that time that something was really wrong, and then after that, when they finished that test, it wasn't even the neurologist, it was the people that did the test, and they kind of gave us the short version of what was going on. And so that was when we, it was basically, the picture was that he was going to die.
Jack has spinal muscular atrophy, SMA, a progressive muscular weakening. Now 18 months old, he can't walk or sit up. He is living on borrowed time. The Friedmans were warned that any future children would have a 1 in 4 chance of inheriting SMA like Jack.
There you go. Is that better?
It seems to me that there were 3 basic choices. Obviously, adoption was a choice, and also using donor insemination to have a child who would be biologically mine and then use another man's sperm.
The final option was a natural pregnancy, then amniocentesis. At 12 to 16 weeks into a pregnancy, amniotic fluid can be taken from the sac around the embryo for genetic testing. This gives parents the option of aborting a baby with damaged genes.
That was not a choice for Al and I, because that would be like aborting Jack, and I wouldn't agree with that.
But a scientific breakthrough was about to offer them another alternative. In Washington, Dr. Mark Hughes was researching genetic mutations. He hoped to combine this work with IVF to help parents like the Friedmans.
Would the technologies allow medicine to advance to the stage where we could make the diagnosis before they ever became pregnant, so that the embryo could be put back to the woman's womb and she could start her pregnancy knowing that it didn't have this disease, with a commitment to continuing it from day one. And that was basically science fiction just a few years ago.
Through the grapevine, the Friedmans heard about a doctor who might offer them hope.
I remembered Dr. Hughes' name being mentioned to me, and that he was at the National Institute of Health. So I went onto the internet, and up came his name. So I immediately sent him a message. I said, my wife and I recently learned that our son has spinal muscular atrophy.
And we are interested in exploring our reproductive options. Please let me know if you're interested in talking with us, and we hope to hear from you soon. Signed, Albert and Ann Friedman. It wasn't on our agenda to work on spinal muscular atrophy, SMA1. We had a list of diseases that we thought we would try to work on first. Then we receive a call from the Friedman family, and they were quite persuasive that we should be changing our priorities, and inundated me with emails and photographs of the family, and pretty soon you started to get to understand their story more and more.
Is that good?
When they finally met Dr. Hughes, he showed them a picture of an embryo he had selected 4 years earlier that had grown into a healthy girl.
He pointed to this one picture, microscopic kind of pictures, and he said, this is a little 4-year-old girl who doesn't have cystic fibrosis. All I could think of, that's a little girl who's riding her trike and playing with her dolls and going to school, and she's not dying.
Hey, buddy. Somebody close to me said that this idea that we could have another baby this way with Dr. Hughes' help was a soap bubble. It's floating through the air right now because it could pop anytime. This may not work. And we have one child, and it's Jack, and things haven't gone smoothly. It's hard to picture a healthy baby, and certainly hard to count on it given what we've experienced. It's hard to count on anything, but I believe it's important for us to proceed and try and be realistic and cautious. There we go. I'll bet I know what you want. What are you looking at? Oh, you see the raindrops, don't you? Is that what you're looking at up there? You see that rain coming on the window?
One out of every 30 Americans carry the damaged Fanconi gene, like Jack and Lisa Nash, who live in Denver. Unknowingly, both pass their damaged gene on to Molly. Unless a bone marrow match is found, Molly will develop leukemia and die before the age of 8.
She was born on the 4th of July, and the nurses didn't know what to say. The doctors don't know what to say. Nobody knows what to say.
When it happens to you, it's a whole different thing. This can't be happening to me. I didn't do anything while I was pregnant. How could this be happening to me? What did I, you want to ask, what did I do to deserve this?
We had a good number of ultrasounds during Lisa's pregnancy, and they didn't see any signs of this. I mean, she's missing her thumbs. I mean, you'd think that they would notice those things.
When I saw her, I apologized to her. Told her I was sorry. But I thought she was the most beautiful baby I'd ever seen. And I loved her the instant I saw her.
She was a good kid.
She looks like me.
Yeah.
You want to sit up so you don't throw up, please?
No, I don't.
I would really appreciate it if you didn't throw up.
No.
Molly has to be fed directly through a valve into her stomach. Digestive and heart problems are classic signs of Fanconi's, as are deformities of the arms and hands.
Oh, it smells lovely. Yeah. Oh, does it smell good?
Hi, Molly. How are you?
I waited and waited for a grandchild, and I knew I would fall in love with the grandchild and, of course, hope that everything would be healthy and perfect and normal. But I did not know how deeply I was going to fall in love, maybe even more so because of all the things we've had to go through with her. We all call her the baby goose. I'm not sure why or where that came from, but it's kind of a nickname. And yes, she touches everybody's life that she's around. She's constantly smiling and kissing you. And she's special. She's just extremely special.
The Nashes have searched far and wide, but no bone marrow donor has been found. So Molly's only chance is for the Nashes to conceive a marrow-matching brother or sister. Lisa and Jack considered getting pregnant.
Our problem with having another child is, what are our chances of having another child that has Fanconi's anemia?
There's a 1 in 4 chance that the baby could have Fanconi's again because this is an autosomal recessive disorder. There's about a 1 in 5 chance that the baby would be a bone marrow match for Molly. The chance of having a bone marrow match and a healthy baby together is a lot lower.
Having several births, hoping always for a healthy baby, which was also a match, was a lottery that neither parent wanted to play. And time is running out for Molly.
She said that her brother...
What can we do to beat these odds? What technology can change this? And you keep looking.
Could a miracle of modern medicine help?
They called and asked whether pre-implantation testing was available for Fanconi. And while we were doing our homework, they called back again and they said, you could identify which ones don't have this lethal disease. And then if there were any that were an identical match for our daughter, you could transfer those as well, preferentially stack the deck in the favor of our daughter. And now, at the time of delivery, you could hand this couple a healthy baby without this dreaded condition, and you could take cord blood that you'd normally throw away and simply give it to the sister and cure the disease in her simultaneously.
The Nashes were asking Mark Hughes for a newborn, healthy baby, and more.
Can you give me a nose kiss?
A baby to save Molly's life.
Nose kiss.
Now, on the surface, that sounded like a wonderful way to use this technology, but the more I thought about it, the more I became concerned. Because, for me, it was crossing this line between testing for serious, lethal genetic disease and testing for a trait, in this case, HLA. A trait that is of no intrinsic value to that newborn baby. It's of value to somebody else, Molly. And is that the right thing to do? Is the raison d'etre of that second child to save the life of the first, and not for its own sake?
I'll use the old-fashioned remedy.
The Nash's embryo would earn its right to life by having the trait needed to save Molly. It's hard to think of a better reason for selection, but it raises the fears of genetic manipulation. Where might it lead? Dr. Sue Daniels is a senior embryologist involved in the production of IVF embryos.
Every step is bold, and usually they're done before the steps are taken, the science is developed, before anybody has really thought about what are the implications of these things. Some people may find that unacceptable. Others will say, well, that's fine. It doesn't really matter, and I'll accept the risks of the technology. But certainly, the technology is running far ahead of what any ethical considerations, any social implications, any of that has been considered.
Eminent biologist Ruth Hubbard is also concerned.
When Louise Brown was born, when in vitro fertilization first was developed, there were numbers of us who were extremely concerned that it would open the door to the kinds of developments that have, in fact, taken place.
I'm sure some people think we're playing God. Because you're choosing what you want.
And what would you say to them?
I would first want to know if they were in our situation.
Yeah, I would tell them, I hope you're never in my situation, but don't judge me until you walk in my shoes and know what it's like to live through what I'm living through. And to hug your healthy children and thank dear God that they're fine. But to not criticize me or ridicule me for the choices that I have to make to save my child.
When the Denver University Center for Reproductive Medicine realized the complexity of the ethical issues, they called a halt to the procedure. A medical review board was convened. The Nashes held their breath.
We don't have any other choices. A family who wants to have a healthy baby, who wants to save their own child. What other choices are there?
Here we go! Boomski! Okay, that's it, we're done.
You see the water? There he is.
Almost a year has passed since the Friedmans first dared hope they could have a healthy child. It has taken Mark Hughes months to identify the mutation among the 3 billion parts that will claim Jack. Tomorrow, the family travels to Washington. If all goes well, Anne will come back pregnant. The procedure will take 5 days.
When the pie was open, you want help with directions?
No, I got him right here.
The birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king?
Day 1. The eggs will be removed and fertilized. Days 2 and 3, the fertilized eggs will divide. Day 4, a cell will be biopsied for diagnosis. Day 5, any embryos free of disease will be transferred to Anne's womb. It is day 1. Anne is in egg retrieval. Hormone treatment has stimulated Anne's ovaries. The embryologist expects 15 eggs.
There's nothing in here. Do me a favor, go in there and ask them how that suction machine is working. I'm not getting any cells.
Okay, 4 so far.
4 so far. We still have the endometrioma to look at.
What was the status on these early ones? Because it looked like dead follicles. No cells at all?
Very few. The ones we got were extremely small, dark.
Unusual.
At the final count, there were only 5 eggs, and 2 were very small.
We need to have a lot of eggs because, you know, if we get 10 eggs, we expect maybe 50 or 60% of them are fertilized, and then with the biopsy, you're losing eggs along the way. And to get the maximum pregnancy rate, you want to be able to transfer about 3 embryos. When you've got 3 eggs, the likelihood of that, getting 3 eggs to fertilize, to be able to biopsy them successfully, to get them to be unaffected, and then to be able to transfer 3 good embryos is quite unlikely.
Al has heard about the low egg count.
I feel fine. I'm just disappointed. Did Dr. Groden talk to you?
He talked to me a little while ago. He said they were still checking to see if there were more than one.
No, I think they'd given up looking by the time they talked to me.
Still day 1, early afternoon, fertilization. This lab is using a new technique called ICSI, intracytoplasmic injection. A single sperm is injected directly into the egg.
I go for one that swims well and one that looks reasonably normal. So any gross abnormalities, I don't pick up those sperm. It gets to be quite a routine job, but I think that if I did think about it and the responsibility of what I am doing, maybe starting some life, Sometimes I think I might become overwhelmed with the whole thing.
Two of Anne's eggs fertilize and divide. The third dies. Day 4. A cell has to be taken out for diagnosis. The embryo should have 8 cells by now. The strongest has 5, the other only 2. But still, there is a chance. With an instrument 10 times thinner than a hair, they begin with the more viable of the 2 embryos. This is always a tense moment. The cell bursts. The nucleus is lost. Another cell must be removed.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Mark.
How'd it go?
Well, we had a difficult morning. We've got 2 embryos biopsied, but only one of sufficient quality for transfer, and the other one simply for assay evaluation.
So, all right. Well, we'll get a molecular analysis here, and then we'll see what we have in the morning.
While the scientists worked through the night on the genetic diagnosis, Jack was rushed to the hospital with severe breathing difficulties.
There were 7 or 8 people around his bed when he first got up here. The doctor told us at that time when he was first here that he had about a little better than 50-50 chance of surviving. There was a possibility that he had pneumonia, and pneumonia is the most common cause of death for kids with SMA.
Early morning, day 5. After 15 hours of analysis, the results are ready.
Okay, let's see how we did. In the moment of truth. Ah, we have bands. Oh, fantastic. We've got 1 embryo unaffected, and we've got 1 affected. Of those 2, one of them, and from yesterday, that was the best looking one, would be predicted to be like mom and dad. Good news. We're ready to go. Okay.
After a night at Jack's bedside, the good news is welcome. Anne has gone for implantation. All Al can do is wait.
A lot of stress for us last few days, obviously, with Jack being sick. But we made it here, and we've got a shot at this working this time, which we didn't think we really had, given what's been going on with the doctors here at the hospital, looking at our eggs and embryos and all that. So we're lucky. Dr. Hughes showed us a little film of the embryos and the pattern. It reminded me that Jack is part of this. He helped us, and he helped Dr. Hughes. He's here with us. He's a good boy.
The sole viable embryo is passed from the laboratory through the hatch into the operating room to be placed in Anne's womb.
Hey, Dr. Groden?
The Friedmans will not know the outcome for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Soon after the Friedmans' procedure, Dr. Mark Hughes found himself facing the biggest crisis of his career. For almost 2 years, his research had been part of the Human Genome Project, coming under the National Institute of Health and federally funded. In 1995, Congress passed a bill banning the use of government funds in embryo research.
There's a federal statute that basically withdraws any form of federal funding for research on embryos or embryo tissue. And it's subject to interpretation with regard to what's an embryo, what's a tissue, what is research, which aspects of embryonic research violate the intent, the spirit of the statute. Its message is clear. It was the product of a Congress that fell under the influence of a strong right-to-life movement in the United States, who saw embryo research as part of the abortion issue. And really, the statute is a message more about abortion, more about the right to life, than it is about scientific research or science or genetics or children.
In October 1996, Mark Hughes' federal funding, a substantial portion of his operating budget, was cut off. This is not the first time that politics and the new science of genetics and reproduction have collided. Dr. Alan Trounson is a veteran of the controversy. He created the world's second test tube baby. In the early 80s, his embryo research in Australia led the world.
And in our case, it was the Roman Catholic Church and some feminist groups, radical feminist groups, were able to engineer legislation through our local state government, which in fact prevented us from doing research on human embryos.
Trounson's embryo research did not stop. It just moved elsewhere.
Science is not local. It's not a local endeavour. It's an international. We travel with PhDs across international borders. We can actually work wherever we like. And as a consequence, the research goes on.
Mark Hughes' work also went on, despite the funding cutbacks. He would not withdraw the treatment from the families already under his care.
You don't need to.
In Denver, the Nashes learned that the ethics board had given permission for the treatment to go ahead.
Okay, well, this is good. At least I know something. Okay, and then I will call you on day 3 and come get my blood drawn. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Mark Hughes has still not said that he knows how to do it.
He'll figure it out, Lisa.
And he says I can drink champagne on New Year's Eve.
You don't need to drink champagne.
Now Lisa must start IVF treatment. This has become quite a common technique for infertile couples over the last 20 years. It requires a heavy cocktail of hormones.
He wants to take my eggs, do the egg retrieval on the 6th of January. Prior to that, he would probably start me on the Pergonal the 27th of December. That's the stimulating drug. Then what he said was he'll put me on Lupron day 21 of my next cycle, so a month from now. He'll put me on the Lupron. I'll stay on that until they do the egg retrieval.
I'll do it.
But in addition to the Lupron, I'll be on the stimulation drugs. And I'll be on the stimulation drugs for 8 days. Then I'll get HCG on the 9th day. They do the egg retrieval 35 hours later on the 11th day.
These women are definitely at risk because of the manipulation of their hormones, because of the hyperstimulation, because of the extreme level of hyperstimulation.
Fine. She's fine.
I wonder whether these women really are aware of the enormous risks they're putting themselves at, and what are they doing for those children if it in fact turns out that they themselves are putting themselves in mortal danger.
Where are your shoes?
Two months have passed. Dr. Mark Hughes has finally found the needle in a haystack, the damaged Fanconi gene.
Trust me.
Tomorrow, Lisa Nash's 5-day procedure begins. She has been on maximum hormone stimulation.
Like if I go over a bump, you can feel your ovary kind of going like that. It's gross. But I can't button my jeans. I can't button my pants because my tummy's so puffy. And I won't put on my maternity clothes because I'm superstitious.
I want to be sympathetic towards her, so I've gained some weight and a little excess bloating. My boobs hurt too, so that's all right.
Well, that's good because mine don't.
We're going to make it through it.
Yeah. Where's your shoe?
Video hooked up to this.
In the Denver University Hospital, Lisa's eggs are collected from her ovaries.
Shake off
shake up the second half a little bit in case they want to. Dr. Hurst said she had 21 follicles, and generally he does fairly well. We generally get 1 egg per follicle. There's another egg.
Happy with it?
Lovely. Oh, they're just pretty. Now, I tell you, this took some doing. Come here. Sticky cells, sticky cells, sticky cells. Come here. Let go. Let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. Right. Right. Ooh, our fertilization rates are much, much higher if we leave some cumulus. And looks like he's got great sperm, so I'm not too worried about leaving a little extra cumulus on her eggs.
I want to know how many eggs I got.
Count so far, Barb?
14.
14.
So 14 so far, and they'll be counting for a little bit. So we'll roll you down to the recovery room, and I'll let your husband know that you did great. How many?
15. We'll keep yelling them out to you.
Yeah, I want to hear it. 15, Lisa. Still counting.
Everything went good. Nauseous.
Did you hear
There's
everything
21
went good?
eggs so far.
Yeah.
They're still counting. I got 21 eggs for you. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Hopefully more.
You dropped it?
Yeah.
Did you tell Mommy you did Okay, I'm going to inseminate with approximately 48,000 sperm per egg. We use a 10 microliter volume. It's fairly small, but there are a lot of sperm in there.
Unlike in Washington, where a single sperm from Al Friedman was placed directly into each egg, in Denver they favor a more natural method. Some 48,000 of Jack Nash's sperm are sprayed over each of Lisa's final total of 22 eggs. After fertilization, the embryos need 3 days to divide.
You're a very good mommy to Monica.
Will any of these be a marrow match for Molly?
She night-night? Yeah. It's been good. Everything's been going in the right direction. It's just kind of hard waiting. Sometimes it's like, I don't know if I can take anymore. The not knowing and the wondering. You don't have any control over anything. You have no control. And then this morning, I guess it's just hormones. You go through menopause 25 years too early, and then they put you into overdrive. This morning I woke up and I was just crying. Everything made me sad. But it never hurts to have a good cry, right, Molly? And you know, God's going to do what he wants to do. He'll give us a baby if he wants to, so.
2s and 1s are what you want to see. Let's see, this one is a 4-cell grade 3.
It's snowing everywhere, right?
So when is he going to call?
There's number 10, and nothing. Didn't mature. I don't think she's going to be too happy with this.
I'm going to put my blood pressure through the roof. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. Okay, I can. How do we do this? Hello?
Lisa? Hi, Lisa. This is Kathy Tucker calling from the IVF lab.
Uh-huh.
How are you feeling today?
Until about 10 minutes ago, I felt okay. Now I want to throw up.
Can you do this?
And some more could die by tomorrow, too. Okay, so now what? Thanks. Yeah. I can't ever do anything right, and this just isn't any different. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Bye. 3 of them died.
Only 11 of Lisa's 22 eggs developed to biopsy stage. They had hoped for more. Once removed, the delicate single cells have a plane to catch to Washington. The sooner the cells reach Mark Hughes, the sooner the diagnosis can start and the sooner the right embryos can be identified for implantation. The longer the embryos remain out of the womb, the less viable they become.
Hello, Dr. Hughes. This is Dr. Cotta. I'm calling you from the Denver airport. The sample has left on the 11:30 flight from Denver to Washington, Dallas. You should be able to get the sample around 5:30 at the airport. Good luck.
They made it. 11 tiny cells. This will be the first genetic selection ever made for two purposes. To screen for the marrow match, multiple places on the genome have to be scanned, and the deadly error within the Fanconi gene must be located.
This is the most difficult diagnostics we've done. And we have to do all of this in this short period of time that we have in order to make the diagnosis in time to transfer the embryos. It's pushing the limits.
What are the chances of success from 11?
We would predict that if everything goes according to plan, 8 of them would be free of Fanconi anemia. And of those 8, 2 of them will also be an identical bone marrow match for Molly.
First stage, the thermocycler. By morning, the 2 strands of DNA in each cell will have been replicated millions of times.
It's rolling. Sleep tight. All right, embryo 1 is a heterozygote. That means unaffected. Normal, mutant, like mom and dad. Embryo 2 is also a heterozygote. Great! Embryo 1.
As hoped, 8 of the 11 embryos do not carry the Fanconi disease. But what luck with the marrow match?
2 is a 2, 12. Bingo, we got one.
The good luck held. There was a second marrow match among the healthy embryos.
10. Those are the 2. This is great. We've got some embryos to transfer. Now we have to...
In Denver, the IVF team stands by.
There they are. That's it.
Don't drop them.
No, it wasn't Kathy.
That was the film. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm silent as the night.
You may be able to see a little starburst type image on the. Okay.
Yeah?
Where we put them, they stay.
Now,
they
what
stay
happens
there.
if they implanted really, really close together? That wouldn't hurt them?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
This isn't quite how you usually do it, but...
No.
That's why I said no champagne, no movement. Well, I guess.
That's okay.
Oh my God. Right. Oh, please be healthy, guys. Please be healthy. Please be strong. There she is!
There's Mama. What's your tummy, Mama?
Oh, the tummy's
There's Mama.
Do you know what I have in my tummy? I have a baby brother or sister.
Thank you.
I have 2 little babies in my tummy.
The first embryos ever selected, both for health and for trait, are out of the lab and into the womb. has the door to designer babies been opened just a bit wider.
It is likely that the field of genetics will proceed to a point where things like height, color of eyes, longevity, the sensitivity to certain diseases, all those things which are probably genetically determined, can probably be assessed in one cell.
Are we ready for the ethical questions that genetic selection for individual traits is about to thrust upon us?
Once you get to the situation where it is essentially a complicated process about whether your offspring may or may not inherit a certain characteristic, that is aggression or gayness or some aspect which may be less preferred but not at risk for survival, you are taking decisions which are generally beyond our capability of making simply.
In selecting for trait, are we taking the first step to design children? So far, genetic diagnosis has prevented hereditary disease in a few hundred children. Very soon, this technique will affect millions of us. It's estimated that every single one of us has 8 to 12 genetic flaws. Mate with someone who carries a matching flaw, and any of us could have a dying child. Already, genetic scientists can tell some people what diseases lie ahead of them, even what they will die of. This young man knows he will die in 15 years or so of Huntington's chorea.
My uncle had died from that. My grandmother had died from that. In my family, my mother showed when I was 42.
He and his wife asked Dr. Mark Hughes to help them have babies free from the Huntington's curse.
I'm pregnant with twins, a little boy and a little girl. I'll be 24 weeks tomorrow, so about 6 months pregnant.
This couple watched their healthy babies develop, knowing he will not see them grow to adulthood. This man is unusual. He knows his genetic future. Soon everyone could.
There's certain people you can tell, there's certain people that you can't tell. My doctor, normal doctor, doesn't know.
He cannot tell his employers.
I'm going to continue in my job, until I start showing. If they had the information that I'm a carrier, to play it safe, they might remove me from that position.
He dare not tell his health insurance company.
An insurance company may not want to pick you up or something. So knowing they're going to have a big bill ahead. So it's more than Huntington's. I mean, there's a lot of other things out there.
When we can predict before babies are even born which of them will die prematurely, will it be right to weed these embryos out?
I think it will be better if you can make a baby which will never have cancer, never have a heart disease. It's a baby which is going to become an adult and will live a very long time. If you don't get if cars are also being redesigned, we'll not have a car accident. Longevity issues and genetics and reproduction are related in a certain way, and those things will get together to make individuals, to produce individuals which will, I think, be a lot better off than we are.
Genetic diagnosis is arguably the biggest scientific breakthrough of the 20th century. But genetic diagnosis is also a kind of time travel, and time travel has never been possible before.
We've never been able to look into the future in any aspect of our lives that I've ever known about before. This knowledge will allow us to be able to essentially predict the probability of the future. And I think that nobody has really synthesized what that means.
If our forefathers could have traveled in time and selected out embryos they knew would suffer from dread diseases or other inherited defects, here are a few who would never have been born. No John F. Kennedy. No Steve McQueen or Albert Einstein. John Huston, Theodore Roosevelt, Ludwig van Beethoven, Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin. No Woody Guthrie, no Abraham Lincoln, no George Bernard Shaw, no many of the rest of us. And when we can select for beauty, brains, and bravery too, which one of us could be sure of being here?
This is what my customers think at the end of a week of filming.
Hey, Molly. Molly, look at the camera and say cheese.
No, she'll do her cheese ball face.
We're home. Home sweet home.
At last.
Hey, Austin. Show us your eyes. Not that big old light coming in. Can you show us your eyes? Just a minute. My.